Hi, I'm John Zangari from Asking Penn State. Today we're going to be asking Penn Staters what they think about COVID in other countries. What do you think COVID was like in other countries?
I thought it was a bit different. Like, I would hear stories about people that had COVID done with already. Like, they were already in stadiums and in mass groups while we were locked in lockdown still. So definitely different.
It seemed like stuff kind of calmed down there a little earlier than it did here.
I think a lot of other countries had stricter regulations, so probably better in the long term.
Honestly, I think it was better in other countries because they got rid of it quicker.
Yeah, like they're not dealing with it now?
No, I don't think so. It's still, here a lot. So, obviously we're still dealing with it. So hopefully we get done with it soon.
So I'm from Germany, so I know.
Okay. What was it like in Germany?
Yes, it was almost the same as here. We had a bunch of restrictions in the first couple of months, and then afterwards it started to loosen up. And then, like right now we don't have any restrictions anymore.
In the fall, I don't know how early in the fall, there was a surge in Egypt. And so my Cairo young lady was telling me, oh my goodness, whatever, to avoid groups and public places and you name it. We get to our part of Egypt finally, and nobody wears masks. I went to the antiquities offices. Oh, we don't have COVID here, so no one wore masks. I bought masks for my whole village team. Some people were wearing masks. Young people were, it was a mixed response to the masking thing. It was all working out, even though, people were lax about masking around us. When we did have a student sick in Egypt, how difficult it was to deal with this because the hospitals there want payment up front. And if you're super sick, you may not be able to get to your funds and or even be alert.
So during the pandemic, I was teaching an ESL course specifically for graduate students who are international teaching assistants. The majority of my students at the time were from East Asia, predominantly China. I also had a student from Thailand as well. Later on, whenever I think we'd all been established and kind of knew that we were doing remote learning. Many of my students were living in China and hadn't actually come to the United States yet as a Penn State student. So they were, doing long distance learning through that. And so some issues that came up with that is just simply the fact that they have to wake up 12, it's a 12-hour difference. And so, if a class is at 3 p.m. here, they have to wake up, early and have a 3 a.m. class. I didn't necessarily have students or many students at least tell me about some of the situations that they came across. But one particular student that I recall who was living in the United States at the time in State College, had said that somebody had yelled at him while he was walking down the street. And I was very concerned for him because I wanted to make sure that he felt safe here, first of all, but also that he knew that there are resources available for him on campus as well to support him as maybe he's processing what had happened. I think as an instructor, you really have to be flexible with that. For everyone, including myself, that's not something that we normally encounter with disruptions in school. And so because of that, you have to kind of shift and make decisions kind of quickly with how you can support your students. But I will say at the at the beginning, whenever everything kind of switched over to online remote learning, some of my students were really having a difficult time because, it's not just focusing on academics, but personally there's food insecurities, there's housing insecurities.
At least from where I came from, it was pretty bad because everybody underestimated it.
Okay.
So yeah.
Where can I ask where you came from?
Yeah, Indonesia.
Indonesia.
Yeah.
It was like comparatively to here. Like, how do you think the response was?
The government's response, or
Yeah.
okay, so the government's response was kind of late. Obviously, I said they underestimated the issue, and people also underestimated the issue. Masks weren't coming in, no regulations they weren't doing anything. So they waited too late, and then it sort of became like India, where hospitals were cooped up. They didn't have enough of anything to help anybody.
COVID probably was more severe just because the United States is very advanced in their scientific process, so other countries probably had more difficult problems with COVID.
What do you think, dump truck? I don't think the dump truck has an opinion.
I think it was a lot worse than it was here, just because I think they had a lot more rules than we did. I think our quarantine was bad, but I know that there was I remember seeing on TikTok people in Italy and stuff, it was really bad there. So I don't know. I think it had a lot more of an effect on people.
Well, it depends on how the government responded. I know in Italy they had a lot of lockdowns, same thing in Australia. Whereas there are other countries where the restrictions were much lighter, I assume.
Since, I primarily work with international students, I would say naturally I have a bit more patience with students, just because I know that even using the English language is a barrier. I began using Google Docs and then realized that some of my students don't have access to the Google Suite because of where they're located. In some ways, as an instructor, it's my job to make sure that the students have access to this course because they're paying for this course. I felt like it was on me to really find ways to help support them, because this wasn't their fault. And it wasn't my fault either, but we're both in this situation where, we are where we are in this moment in history. I felt personally like it was my job to find ways to help support them. There's a lot more happening beyond just school, and their learning, and trying to address those situations in ways in which you can be flexible as an instructor, while also realizing there's some things you can't be flexible on either.
Man, do you have a quick minute for an interview? Sir, please.
Sir,
Okay.
please.
I think we're good.